Pregame.tv, we are taping Tuesday night. We are missing out on the big game in the Sun Belt, Lafayette at the Red Wolves of Arkansas State. But that's all right, because we get to talk about the best team in the country, Oregon, laying a boatload of points to the UCLA Bruins, laying 22.5. I will have a free pick on this game. Brady Kannon, have you had a chance to see Oregon play much this year?
I have a little bit, and they're great to watch. And I've seen a little bit of UCLA as well, watched them a little bit against Stanford this weekend. And, I think they're a very good team as well.
They, I wonder about UCLA. They had those back-to-back games against Stanford last year at the end of the year, and then the Pac-12, 14, 16, whatever they call themselves this week, championship. And now they got to go and play Oregon after that tough physical game against Stanford. And with Oregon, did you get to see the pink uniforms last week that they tried it out? These pink uniforms, I know Arkansas State's wearing them tonight. I don't know if that's such a good idea for a team. Seems like they're underperforming. I watched that entire game with Oregon against Washington State, and they killed Washington State.
Yes.
Did you see the whole game?
And in the end, they didn't cover the number.
Yeah, they actually...
Which is about the first time this year, I think.
They were up like 17 in the first half, and there was like a strip fumble 6, and the fat boy rolled in for Washington State. And they cut to the Oregon players on the sidelines with their pink unis, and they had this look of, what was that? And the whole game was that way. It's amazing how they really seemed to kill Washington State, and they finally got up 38.
Right.
And then they pulled everyone. There's a controversy at the end of the game, even, I heard, that the defensive coordinator of Oregon was screaming at Washington State because they pulled all their starters, and Washington State, Mad Bomber, they kept trying to, imagine that, a team down 62-31's going to try to score.
Trying to score, yeah.
So it was interesting. So that game ends, and this is going to be really the crux of my handicap. So Oregon, who everyone knows is the best or the second best team in the country, goes ahead and checks out their BCS rankings to see if they're 1 or 2, and they come up with the 3 ball. How do you think they're going to react to that?
Yeah, it ought to be interesting. And that combined with, like you say, at the end of that Washington State game where they're thinking, they're getting some beauty points for blowing this team out. And it also sets up a little bit like Washington. Washington played Stanford and then went to Oregon. Okay, now you've got UCLA following the same pattern here, and we know what happened to the Huskies. I don't know if it spells a good system for UCLA.
Yeah, I think you got to worry about when you're stepping up in class and all these games back to back to back, whereas Oregon's just coasting and everything is fine. And you really have to, I know that UCLA looked very good when they played Nebraska, but we found out Nebraska really isn't all that much, this year. And how deep really is, UCLA to go ahead and go through all that. And one thing with this total, like sitting at 78, it's almost like you do power ratings don't work, because you got to take the power ratings of these teams, and that assumes a normal 54 points in a college football game, or whatever the normal is now. It might be, slightly higher than that. You almost have to multiply by 1.5 to normalize it up to how many points are going to actually get scored in a game like this.
I would expect the Oregon defense to contain UCLA a little bit. Washington State got some points against them, but Stanford maybe laid a blueprint, for how to slow down this UCLA offense. Now, Stanford, I know, is a more physical NFL pro-style team than Oregon is, but, I think Oregon is maybe a little bit underrated defensively.
Oregon going to run the table and be in the title game?
I think so. Yeah, I personally think they're the best team. Now, Alabama, there's certainly plenty of arguments out there that you can say they are the best. Is it the style points that's making me make my decision that way? But, we talked earlier about strength of schedule, and Alabama really hasn't done much of anything, whereas Oregon has played some decent teams, and we're going to see this weekend they play another decent team.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting with Florida State being number 2 in the rankings, Johnny Avello, who I respect his opinion greatly, he went ahead and said that he actually would make Florida State against Alabama right around a pick 'em, or if not even Florida State a favorite, which I don't agree with. But what was interesting is that Johnny made me some good coin, because I went over and started surfing on my apps, and at the South Point, they still had up the hypothetical matchup, so I was able to bet $1,000 on the Florida State against Alabama +9. That was just
wow.
yesterday. Can you
Florida
believe it?
State against Alabama.
And now it's 4. So yes, so it shows.
I didn't know they had that one up. They've had for a while. They had the Alabama, Oregon, right?
Yes, at 3.5,
and that's about 3.5.
Down to 3, down to 2.
Okay.
Yes, but that's it. Just goes to show how, and
nice
obviously
grab.
what happened after Florida State destroyed Clemson, that we had to jump their power ratings 4 or 5 points, and we just, it's a bet probably would never even actually occur.
And they're a great team, but have they played anybody else besides Clemson yet, too? And I know they've got some people on their schedule that are going to be worthwhile, and they are extremely impressive. And they go into Death Valley and come off with a huge win. But I don't know if I'm ready to put them ahead of Oregon yet.
Sure. Well, let me get back to the task at hand here with this Oregon game. I want to make this official. I love Oregon in this game. Oregon Ducks, they run the table. They are in to the national championship game. I know it. Brady knows it. Cade knows it back in our production booth here. And RJ Bell even knows it. And he's spending all his time on the NFL. But the bottom line is, there's always the feeling of doubt. I don't care how certain you are. You look at the BCS standings and you don't trust the BCS at all. I don't care if it's Condoleezza Rice that's running things or whoever is running things right now. If there's computers involved, it's time to take matters into our own hands. No more of this letting up. No more putting in the second string to make sure we don't get hurt. It's time to bury some teams until we know for sure that we're 2 and Florida State is 3. If we get to 1, that's fine also, but we got to jump these guys earlier, better than later. And I really think that this team is going to respond with a huge sense of urgency. I think they're going to bury the Bruins. All the time I let you know on my picks which ones to play immediately, which ones you got plenty of time. Brady talking about Thursday night, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hey, you have a few margaritas. Kick back until Thursday right before post, go over to a Gold Coast, go over to a station, get a +7 on a game like that. That's not the case here. Get this thing now. It's only going up, up, up. Late 22.5. Quack, quack. The Ducks destroy the Bruins. Jump on it before the point spread tax gets too high.
I like it. I think, they're looking at what Florida State did last week against a very quality opponent, and here's their opportunity to do the same against a quality opponent. That probably woke them up.
I think awoken the sleeping giant, just like
sleeping duck.
The sleeping duck, and just like that, there's a duck in that movie Bad Grandpa, and I see.
Here we go with the movies.
You've seen the previews with Jackass, where they see someone just chimed in over here with a text to me saying how much.
I do want to see that. That looks hilarious.
It's just far too crude for me, but it's one of those that like after it goes to YouTube and like, yeah, okay, I will check it out. Speaking of Jackass, we are pregame.tv. We are going to be talking about the Detroit Lions and some of their shenanigans that cost them games seemingly each and every year. They are hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Sounds like a Thanksgiving Day game, but it's closer to Halloween. Will it be a house of horrors for the Cowboys? Stay tuned for my free selection on that pregame.tv.
All right, buddy.
Jack.